What's up, everybody? Think of the coolest mailbox you have ever seen in your life. Got it? Bam. That's got to be in the top five, 600, right? Don't worry about that little shim at the bottom. I got a fix for that. But yeah, if you guys didn't know, I'm old. This is the kind of stuff I do for fun these days. And I get more excited about finding pretty plants to put in my planter boxes that me and Ruckus built than having fresh kicks on my bike for the season. Okay, so for you guys that actually watch my videos start to finish, first off, thank you. But you've probably heard me mention this quite a few times, and it's always in the most random of places. But there are all kinds of ancient references to stars being alive, being actual sentient beings with some type of cosmic consciousness. So as soon as I heard what this missionary said down in Mexico about what the locals say, I knew I had to do a video on it.
That very place we're actually rescuing children there.
Wow,
And they
stop.
have crazy things happen. The guy that runs the place told me that there are certain times of year that the stars come down and turn into people and all kinds of things. And I'm like, oh really? He said, yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
Okay, so to 99.99% of the world, that just sounds like a crazy ass statement. But for me, I just said, man, I knew there was something there. And like I said, it's always in the most random of places, so it's hard to do a whole video about it. I think I got this covered. But I kind of doubt he just made that up and think he probably heard that from some locals. And think for a second about what he said.
Things happen. The guy that runs the place told me that there are certain times of year that the stars come down and turn into people and all kinds of things. And I'm
So there's certain times a year that they come down and turn into people. Now think about high holy days and annual ritual ceremonies that the ancients would have. Why were the ancients so obsessed with astronomy? I mean, I just read an account a couple weeks ago from a Jesuit back in the 1700s that said that they had a 365-day and 6-hour calendar when he was talking about the Aztecs. So they knew that there was an extra 6 hours on there, which is why we have a leap day every 4 years. So that's pretty damn accurate. So it sounds to me like they would have these ceremonies on specific days, hoping to call down one of these deities, one of these stars, and that was the only specific day that they're cosmically allowed to come down or something. There are a lot of ancient references that, well, for one, a lot of people, when they said gods, they actually meant the stars, but there's also references of even angels and demons being stars. And I've seen Hollywood hint at this many times before, but a couple that I can think of off the top of my head here. The movie Legend from back in the 80s with Tom Cruise, back when he was actually cool. Well, in the final fight scene, you got this demon that lives underground in the underworld, and Tom Cruise kills him with a unicorn horn. No joke. But then he falls from his underground lair out into open space and turns into stars. And yeah, I know it's just a movie, but a lot of these guys are into the occult. And then in another movie, Stardust, they had done something to send a message and it went all the way up to a star, and the star falls down from the heavens, crash lands on Earth, and the whole movie is this guy going up north trying to find where the star is falling, but it turns out the star is a woman. But okay, I better have something better here than Hollywood fiction, right? Let's look at the ancient mystery schools. The mysteries had always used inscrutable language to safeguard the secret knowledge. Plato's words in a letter to Dionysius the Younger can serve as an example of this old practice. Quote, I must write to you in enigmas so that if my letter is intercepted by land or sea, he who shall read it may in no degree comprehend it. Because of the veiled symbology of the greater mysteries, their teaching is unintelligible to fools, said the initiates. In the course of history, these superior men heard much, spoke little, and acted well. Since very early times, there has been a secret international symbol code in common use among the initiates, which affords a key to the meaning of such occult doctrines as are still jealously guarded by religious fraternities in India, as in Tibet and in China, Mongolia, and Japan. There's a lot of ancient symbolism out there that we have an explanation on, but who knows if it's the right explanation. And here in a little bit, I'll give you guys an example of how much information can be stored in one symbol if you know what it means. But like in the movie The Shining, the director used some Native American artwork back here that was authentic symbolism, and they got really mad because that's supposed to be like secret, sacred stuff. And he's out here putting it in a movie for all of the world to see. Now, I have no idea what that means, but it means something to somebody. But the ancient mysteries had stuff like that that were only known to the adepts. According to Cicero and Virgil, the mysteries taught the doctrine of reincarnation and elucidated that the pains and sorrows of this life are an expiation of prior faults and sins, karma. This idea could have been an importation from India, which ancient Greece and Rome did have commercial and cultural contacts. Yeah, of course they did. The Silk Road was around for thousands of years. And before that, they were transporting silk and stuff like that over by ship. I think that's one of the reasons Egypt got so rich is because of trade with the East. Everybody can sit here and wonder about how this was built all day long, but one thing's for sure, somebody paid for this shit. Whether it's paying skilled labor for the statues or for slaves, you still got to feed them, you still got to keep them going. And this is a show of immense wealth. Did you know that all the way back in dynastic Egypt, they had the Canal of the Pharaohs connecting the Red Sea to the Nile, then to the Mediterranean? So just like we have the Suez Canal today, 3,000 years ago, they had a canal to facilitate trade with the East. And basically, all of the Westerners' gold wound up in the East because they've got all the spices and the silks over there. And all we've got in the West is gold and silver. It all went that way. Anyway, I do digress at times. The admission to the greater mysteries required certain elaborate ceremonies called initiations, and I think they were done at specific times of years, at specific star alignments. It is apparent from the works of classical writers that some extraordinary phenomena took place during these rituals. Quote, we became spectators of entire, simple, immovable, and blessed visions resident in pure light. Thus, Plato describes his impressions in Phaedrus. Proclus, 5th century, adds that the gods exhibit many forms of themselves and appear in a variety of shapes, and sometimes, indeed, a formless light of themselves is held to view. So, the gods, which is synonymous in ancient times with the stars or the planets, there's even a book from 1908 using the word God in that form. It's about a Norse guy that winds up sailing into the inner earth, and inside the inner earth is a smoky sun, a smoky star, or a smoky god there. So the gods, the stars, would come down and exhibit many forms of themselves, sometimes a formless light, which we'll have more on in a minute. The most widely disseminated mysteries were those of Isis, Orpheus, Eleusis, Dionysius, Ceres, and Mithras. The ceremonies of initiation were performed at night when the stars are out, generally in caverns, labyrinths, or pyramids. The cosmic character and purport of the greater mysteries becomes apparent from the fundamental doctrine that the earth was only man's place of exile and starry space his real home. So I'm just going to throw this out there. You know how there are billions and billions of stars in the night sky, and there are billions and billions of forms of life here on Earth? Well, what if each of us are actually this little point of light in the sky of pure consciousness being beamed down into this realm? And actually, that is an idea that I had formed in my head before I ever even read this. It's like I said, it's just so random where it pops up everywhere. It's hard to put together into one video. But fundamental doctrine of the greater mysteries is that man's place, Earth is man's place of exile, and starry space his real home. Thus, a worldwide association of wise men was created at the dawn of civilization, which has successfully preserved ancient wisdom for thousands of years. There was an intimate connection between science, particularly astronomy, and the greater mysteries. This conclusion springs from the astronomical symbology employed in the mysteries. So it sounds like some people have known since the dawn of civilization that we are of the stars or we are stars, and we're down here reincarnating over and over again in our exile here, which ties in heavily with the Gnostic point of view. Gnosticism, you have the pleroma or the highest heaven, which is above our physical realm. It's beyond us. And the one true God, the monad, is the true creator of everything, the source of everything. Then from him came the aeons, which are beings of perfect light. And they are all paired up, male and female counterparts. Well, Sophia decided that she would create without her male counterpart, and she basically had a bastard child, Yaldabaoth, who is the demiurge. He was a monstrous abomination, sometimes pictured like this: dragon or serpent with a lion's head. Well, Sophia decides to hide him from the true god, Monad. So she takes him down into the waters of the abyss. This is the material world, and you can kind of think of the waters as material. Well, Yaldabaoth is of the gods, so he has that godly power down here in the abyss, and he has the power of creation. So he starts creating, and he's ignorant of everything that's going on and thinks that he is the all powerful one true God. So the first thing he creates are the Archons, or the stars, the planets, and they are the rulers over Earth. So it's like this celestial clockwork that dictates what happens to man here on Earth. But once again, it's the stars are sentient and ruling over mankind and Earth. If you've ever heard the term the seven heavens, that's because of the seven celestial spheres that the gods travel on. And there's even one Gnostic text of supposedly Jesus explaining what you're supposed to say to each of these archons on your way out of this realm to actually escape this realm back up to the pleroma. But you can tie all this into why a horoscope accurately predicts somebody's personality, because due to certain alignments, you're going to have certain traits. Here's a little bit out of the hypostasis of the archons, the reality of the rulers. I didn't know this text existed till just recently. I may have to do a whole video on this, but a little bit of it. Now, when his, Yaldabaoth's offspring, Sabaoth, saw the force of that angel, he repented and condemned his father and his mother, Matter. He loathed her, but he sang songs of praise up to Sophia and her daughter Zoe. And Sophia and Zoe caught him up and gave him charge of the seventh heaven, below the veil between above and below. So that's the seventh heaven is the celestial sphere that all of the distant stars are located in, and that's the boundary between the pleroma and the abyss. And he is called God of the Forces, Sabaoth, since he is up above the forces of chaos, for Sophia established him. And I think you can equate forces to archons there. A lot of times they'll use different words for the same thing. Now, when these events had come to pass, he made to himself a huge four-faced chariot of cherubim and infinitely many angels to act as ministers, infinitely many, and also harps and lyres. So is that where we get this idea from? Something I've wondered about for a long time. And this is from the Nag Hammadi library, so it's at least an old text. And Sophia took her daughter Zoe and had her sit upon his right to teach him about the things that exist in the eighth heaven, the pleroma, and the angel of wrath she placed upon his left. Since that day, his right has been called life, and the left has come to represent the unrighteousness of the realm of absolute power above. It was before your time that they came into being. Now, when Yaldabaoth saw him, Sabaoth, in this great splendor and at this height, he envied him, and the envy became an androgynous product, and this was the origin of envy. And envy engendered death, and death engendered his offspring, and gave each of them charge of its heaven, and all the heavens of chaos became full of their multitudes. So the billions and billions of stars. And just like all of the quote sons of Yaldabaoth are the embodiment of bad characteristics, the aeons in the pleroma are the embodiment of good characteristics, love, truth, knowledge, etc. But it was by the will of the Father of the entirety that they all came into being, after the pattern of all the things above, so that the sum of chaos might be attained. Now, just for context here, this is supposed to be a conversation between an angel from the Pleroma, Alelith, and Adam and Eve's first daughter. I think her name was Norea or something like that, after they had had Cain, Abel, and Seth. But Alelith says, there I have taught you about the pattern of the rulers, the Archons, and the matter in which it was expressed, and their parent, and their universe. But I said, sir, am I also from their matter? This conversation goes on for quite a while. I'm going to jump to the end just to leave you guys with a happy ending here. Then all the children of the light will be truly acquainted with the truth and their root, and the Father of the entirety and the Holy Spirit. They will all say with a single voice, the Father's truth is just, and the Son presides over the entirety. And from everyone unto the ages of ages, holy, holy, holy. Amen. So all's well that ends well. In the Testament of Solomon, Solomon is given a ring that controls demons. He's given this ring by an angel of the God of this world, which, if you look at the Gnostic side of things, that's Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. And it's always seemed weird to me that the good God, the true God, would give Solomon charge over demons instead of angels, but he gives them charge over demons, and he uses them to make the great temple of Solomon. The quote holiest place on earth was built by demons. Then on the very first page of this book, they show the symbol that was inscribed on the ring to control demons with, and it's a star. If we do a little association, what does that look like? The letter A, which in the Greek alphabet is the alpha, which is used to mean the first, just like alpha, I am the alpha, and the omega, the first and the last. And what was the first thing that Yaldabaoth created? The stars. Well, the name for star in Greek is aster, a star. Or in the plural, astra, like astrological, astra, stars, logos, where we get logic from, the science or art of reasoning of the stars. Or astron, often used for constellations. So astronomy is the study of the constellation stars. And once you start viewing things through this lens, you'll start seeing it a lot. The word disaster is dis, evil, and aster, star, evil star, angry star. And I've read you guys a bunch of old Greek mythology, the original stuff, where it's really clear that they're talking about the lights in the sky falling down and stuff, but it's not so clear about them being actual sentient beings. But people associate it with the wrath of the gods. The inverted pentagram signifies the shaitan, the adversary. I could see that as the upside down or fallen star. Then in the book of Exodus, Moses and Yahweh are up on top of Mount Sinai, and Moses asks Yahweh to show me your glory. And when they say glory and countenance, they mean light, shining. They talk of Jesus having a countenance like the gods, meaning he's got a light coming out of him like the gods. But Moses wants to see the light of Yahweh, and he says, I will make all my goodness pass before thee, and I will proclaim the name of the Lord before thee. Again, his name has power as well. The sound and vibration of creation in the abyss, though. Remember that. And he said, thou canst see my face, for there shall no man see me and live. So we're going to go over to this place, and you're going to stand on a rock. And when my glory passes by, I will put thee in a cleft of the rock and will cover thee with my hand while I pass by. And I will take my hand away, and you shall see my back parts, but my face shall not be seen. So his glory and radiance, his shining light is so much that no man shall see it and live. Then Moses was still glowing so much when he came down off the mountain that it scared the other people. So that's that star power. The whole purpose of a crown is to denote light, radiance coming forth, as in a god, as in you're the most high. And you may have noticed a similarity between the Lion of Judah and Yaldabaoth. That ring around his head is his radiance. They're both wearing crowns. And if you're new here and haven't heard me talk about all this, I've got a whole playlist you can check out if you're interested in this. And if you're a Christian, this might sound messed up at first, but I've got 26 videos, some of them mine, some of them other people's, explaining why I think this way. But I don't think Yahweh is the one true God of everything, the source of everything. I think he's more like the demiurge. I don't necessarily go strictly with what the Gnostics say, but it's same ballpark. And that would explain why Yahweh of the Old Testament is a genocidal maniac ruling with an iron rod, and Jesus is preaching the gospel of love. It's because Jesus came from the monad, the true source, and Yahweh is a vengeful, wrathful God here in the abyss. And it finally made everything make sense to me why Jesus in the New Testament is completely opposite of Yahweh in the Old Testament. It also makes John 8:44 make sense. Jesus said to them, speaking to the tribe of Yahweh, "If God were your father, you would love me, for I have come from God. I have not come on my own. God sent me." Why is my language not clear to you? Because you are unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a red rummer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Anyway, there's a lot more of that in this playlist if anybody's interested. Moving on. If you made it this far, then trip out on this. I think that some statues, they used to communicate through statues. It'll probably take me another year to find the little bits and pieces to qualify that with, but it's there, and it would explain why people worship statues. Think I'm crazy? Well, when Yahweh was telling Moses how to build the Ark of the Covenant, he says, "Place the cover on top of the ark and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law that I will give you. There above the cover between the two cherubim that are over the ark on the covenant law, I will meet with you and give you all my commands for the tribe." So, right there in that specific spot between the two cherubim is where I'm going to talk to you from. And I have reason to believe that, in the ancients, in each person's house, they would have a little cubby over in the corner to the gods, and they'd have statues of the gods in there. And I think sometimes the gods would choose to communicate with people through those statues. But I think more often than that was one specific statue. Like here, we're looking at Huitzilopochtli of the Aztec. And this book from the 1600s says when they first came into Mexico, upon their demon Huitzilopochtli's promise of having the supreme government, wherefore he was carried in an ark by four priests, whom he informed whither and when they should travel or rest. For wherever they stopped, they built a tent in the middle of the army for their idol, whom they set on an altar, which done, they sowed the ground about them. Yet if their demon commanded them to march before harvest, they left the product to the ancient and the sick people. So it sounds like this God would communicate with them through the statue. They carried it with them in an ark everywhere they went, just like the Hebrews here. And then when they set up camp, they set up this idol and on an altar in the middle of their camp, just like they set up the tent of meeting for Yahweh with the Hebrews. And I couldn't find where it says this just now, but no joke, I've covered this in other videos. They say that because of this God, they wandered the desert for 40 years, going a space that could be traveled in just a month. But this God made them wander the desert for 40 years. It's just insanely similar stories. But anyway, I think the gods communicated with people through statues, and they were stars, our stars. We're probably stars. All right, so one last thing here. I was talking about symbolism earlier and how much info could be stored in one symbol. I came up with this a while back, and this was seriously like a week of walking ruckus, contemplating the perfect metaphor for all of this. So on the left, you've got the ethereal realm, the pleroma, the highest heaven, where God, the monad, is the source of everything, and that's what this is. And it's been a while here, but in Hinduism, they break up the powers of that Godhead into three main sources of, I believe it was Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, which can be seen as I've got a generator there representing the power, then internet cables representing the mind, the information, and then Shiva is like a sound wave collapsing. It's the destruction of everything. Everything is pulsing and annihilating. This even happens in their long term concept of time, is that it takes millions and millions of years for a universe to exist and then collapse, and then it happens all over again while Vishnu is dreaming all this. But okay, that's the source up in the pleroma. Then over here you have the real world, the video game board that we're all playing on. And this, including us, is all being projected from God's source. Now, just like there are millions of cell phone signals being broadcast out all over the place, there's only one specific frequency that's going to hit my phone and send me an email, send information there. Well, source is broadcasting in the same way, and I would assume hitting our pineal gland right here with the specific frequency that is only me or only you. We are all just billions of little fragments of source. And then in each of our own minds, you have the God source mind, and then you have the the eagle, you have the ego and the God source mind. And the ego is actually kind of a false construct that we have come up with here. And I don't know if everybody will follow on this, but that voice inside of your head that you talk to yourself with all of the time, that's not the real you. That's not the real God source. That's ego talking to you. See, down below here, I've got the cell phone that controls the actual character in the real world. And inside the mind, there's the God source mind and the ego kind of fighting over control of the cell phone to control the character. That voice in your head, ego, can chatter on all day long about all kinds of crazy stuff. And that doesn't necessarily mean that's what you're going to do. It's just thoughts that you're having. But when you seriously meditate and get down into psychedelic trance mode, whenever you can shut that voice up inside of your head, you realize that's not the real you. The real you is when you have an instinct, when you have something that you just know not to do this or to do this. There's just times when the God mind will actually power through, and you just know deep down inside that that's coming from the right place. That's the real you. It's usually sheltered in a really tight little hole inside there somewhere while your ego's out here eating sandwiches and going crazy. So everything projects from source, goes into mind. There's the pure God mind, and then there's the interference of the ego in there. And eventually you decide what the player in the game, your physical body in this world, is going to do. So whether that all made sense or a little bit of it made sense, you kind of see where I'm going with all this. Okay, we'll take all of that and let's just use this one little symbol right here. And that's what all that means. Who knows? That might actually be what the ancient Egyptians meant by all this. That's where I'm getting the idea of the pineal gland from. But that's just an example of how you can take a big, long, complex idea that would take paragraphs worth of words the way we use them to describe that, and you can just condense it down and say, that's what I mean by that. Anyway, I've been wanting to do this video for quite a while, but I had no idea what I was going to talk about past the dude saying that at a certain time of year, the stars come down and turn into people. And I'll even throw in one more thing. In Willem, I've been looking for this book all over the place. I can't find it, but William Sullivan wrote The Secret of the Incas, and he makes me feel like when I say I did a deep dive into something, I spent 6, 8 hours on something, and I'm a poser because this dude got into the Inca, moved down there, learned the language, and spent years around the actual descendants of the Inca. And he was always trying to reconcile the sacrifices. And he came to the conclusion that when they would sacrifice someone, it was to send a message back up to the stars. They would give them a message before they sacrificed them. And the Inca believed that each individual tribe was a descendant of a specific star. So anyway, there's a lot to the star thing here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll catch you on the next one. Static out.